So welcome everyone to the Sip, Savor, and Share virtual wine tasting and fundraiser for the Women to Watch Awards 2021. My name is Judia Black. I am your sommelier for the evening, and we're going to taste through 6 wines from the Boisset Collection. The Boisset Collection is a wine conglomerate, I guess you can call it, that's based in Burgundy, France, but also has a strong presence in Napa, California. Our CEO, Jean-Charles Boisset, was born in Burgundy and came to California in the 1980s and started buying up quite a few wineries that may have been a little bit not up to the cutting edge in terms of, some of them not in terms of their winemaking techniques. And he really kind of brought in wonderful knowledge from the Burgundian way of making. Burgundy, they've been making wine in Burgundy, France since about the 1200s. It's probably considered to be one of the premier winemaking regions of the world. And these people have been doing it for so long. Of course, the California wine industry is a little bit younger, but it has come a long way. And thanks to people like Jean-Charles Boisset and his wife, Gina Gallo. So they are kind of like Napa dynasties and Napa wine legacies. He married Gina Gallo. Everyone's heard of Ernest and Julio Gallo, that family. And they have really put together a portfolio of about 25 wineries that are just, all the wines are really great quality. And I am an ambassador for the company. It's a direct-to-consumer company, and I've started doing this after I had started my own company, enJoie, in 2008. I became a Boisset ambassador about 5 or 6 years ago as a way to just get more inside the industry and get access to a broader selection of wines and more of a formal way of fulfilling wine orders with people. The great thing about this company is that your wines get shipped directly to you, so you don't have to worry about lugging lots of heavy packages and cases from the store. And it's almost like, it's really the trend of how wine shopping is going to be going now, direct to consumer, kind of like the Amazon of wine. You can just click and purchase and it shows up within 7 to 10 days. So today we have the Taste Like a Pro experience, which includes 3 representative wines from our collection. The Buena Vista Chardonnay, which is, Buena Vista is known as California's oldest winery. It was started by a count named Count Agustin Harsty in the late 1800s. So this winery, if you ever get to go to California, is a great one to visit. It's like a museum, and it really has a lot of California wine history, and it's a beautiful campus. Waddle Creek Winery is the maker of the rosé that we're going to taste in the Taste Like a Pro experience. Waddle Creek Winery was started by winemakers from Australia. So their wines tend to have, and as you know, in Australia, the temperatures are very high, and their wines tend to have a bit more of a high fruit component. They tend to get their style of making wine, unlike the Burgundian style, where it's a cooler climate, is a style of letting the grapes get really ripe, which leads to more fruit and sugar in the wine. And then the third one is Raymond Vineyards. Raymond Vineyards is a classic California Napa winery that's really does amazing things with Cabernet Sauvignon. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the winemaker at Waddle Creek is a female, Katie Carter, and the winemaker at Raymond Vineyards is a female by the name of Stephanie Putnam. So we have quite a few female winemakers in our collection too, that are just kind of rock stars. So when I'm doing a tasting of wines, I like to go from kind of the lightest to the most full-bodied and complex. So in that light, we're going to start with the Waddle Creek Rosé. And all of the Waddle Creek wines have these pretty butterflies on the labels. This is one of their symbols. And I think it's rather pretty, just from a label standpoint. And it's also a pretty color, the rosé. When we're tasting wines as sommeliers, the things we like to do first are look at the color of the wine And so you can pour a little bit of this wine into your glass. And you can see the color, it's like a peachy salmon color. We talk about color in terms of, one thing you want to look for is if the wine, you want to make sure the wine is clear. If it's not, you don't want it to be too cloudy. Sometimes the wines can be a little cloudy if they haven't been filtered, but if it's really cloudy, that's a sign that the wine might be kind of faulty. So you might want to be careful. If you're in a restaurant or something, you might want to point that out to the waiter if they pour you a glass of wine that's really cloudy. But most waiters and sommeliers would probably check that before you, they would notice it before you do. But this wine is clear. It doesn't seem to have any faults. And then you put your nose in the glass and smell it. So I like to be like, I don't want to totally talk at you. I like for people to be interactive and participatory. So would anyone in the group like to talk about their impressions of this on the nose? And actually the sense of smell is a big part of when we're tasting a wine. Really, the sense of smell is contributing to the taste sometimes even more than, you know, your palate and the taste buds. Our palate is really more like, it picks up more on, even though we do have the ability to taste sweet and savory and salty and bitter, but the real thing that we get from the palate is kind of like the mouth feel. We talk about it in professional terms of the mouth feel, or the weight, the body, the smoothness, the roughness, the, you know, the grippiness of the wine. But when we're talking about taste, a lot of it comes from smell. So that's why we like to smell the wine first. And then you can swirl it a little bit after you smell it. You want to smell it first, because once you swirl it, you kind of like let more oxygen in, and it sort of upsets the apple cart, and things, the smell might change a little bit after the swirl. So we typically like to smell before we swirl, and don't over swirl. You don't have to swirl that much. So anyone want to talk about what they're getting on this nose here? Okay, I will start. So I'm getting some fresh watermelon. It may be like a little bit of strawberry, but definitely red fruits on this. This rosé is made from predominantly Pinot Noir, the Pinot Noir grape, and not to be insulting to anyone. Some people probably already know this. A lot of people already know this, but the reason it has the pink color is it is red wine. These are red grapes, but they haven't been left on the skins as long as grapes to make red wine. And that's why they just have this blush color. And a lot of times they make rosé in a vintage or from grapes that maybe could not get as deep and dark and ripe. If it was a particularly cool vintage, or, you know, kind of a vintage that wasn't that ripe and concentrated. So this is primarily Pinot Noir, but it also has a little bit of Zinfandel, red Zinfandel, and I think a few other grapes in it, but the majority of it, I can't remember all of them now, I believe might be Petit Syrah, but the majority of this is Pinot Noir. So with that being said, everyone want to take a sip now? As I mentioned before, the fruit on this is very ripe. It's juicy. This would be really good because it's such ripe fruit. This would be good with spicy foods. Spice and sweet go well together. And if I'm gonna eat like a spicy meal, I would food like maybe some kind of spicy Asian cuisine, or this would be good with barbecue if you have like a spicy barbecue, or also just because of the Pinot Noir going really well with Asian food. I would do this with Asian food. Thai or Mexican food would be also good. And there's something about sugar that just helps to like complement spicy cuisine. Whereas if you have an extremely high, if you have extremely dry wine, it's going to clash, and it's just going to taste really bitter with the food, and it's not going to complement. They're not going to work that well together. So this is a good wine, and it's also just a great sipping wine. I think it's a great quaffer, just to you know, get a meal started, or just if you want to use it as a cocktail or an aperitif when you have people over. Anybody have any thoughts on this wine? What do you think? Like it, love it, hate it?
So
Yum.
we're all enjoying it. It's really good.
Good, good.
Liz thought he smelled some pear, which is a thing.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that too.
I tasted a little strawberry. I'm not good at smelling things. My sense of smell is not very good, but I could taste the strawberry a little bit.
Yeah. And it tastes like fresh fruit, right? We also talk about like, there's a difference between fruit and sweet. And, sometimes people will talk about wine, just in these very simple, like black and white terms, like I like dry wine, I like sweet wine, but there's something in between dry and sweet. And this is like a little bit off dry. It's got a lot of ripe fruit, but it's not technically a sweet wine. Technically a sweet wine has to have a certain amount of residual sugar.
Yeah.
That would be more like a dessert wine.
Yeah.
But this is not a dessert wine. It's not a sweet wine. It's an off dry. It's between like dry and off dry, but it's a little bit more off dry. So this is definitely good for people who might like, more the Moscato lovers and people who don't like extremely dry wines. And it'd be a good brunch wine. Brunch or lunchtime, I see this for, maybe even more than dinner time, like a daytime wine. So that's the first one. The taste is really, I think, what stands out on that wine. Okay, and then we're going to go next to the Buena Vista Chardonnay. Now with this one, we're going to talk a little bit more about the nose of this wine, because the nose of this wine is kind of distinctive, and it's Chardonnay, which is also, it's made from Chardonnay, which is also a fairly neutral grape. So when people, the form and the taste and aromas and everything that Chardonnay takes on really have a lot to do with the winemaking technique, like whether it was stainless steel fermented or oak barrel fermented. Sometimes the mouthfeel will be different if it's really, if it's left on the leaves, if the grapes are left on the leaves or their skins for a long time, they might have a little bit more of a creamy taste versus intentionally sometimes winemakers make them much more crisp and dry. So let's experiment with this and see what we get. I just want to clear my glass so we can really see the color.
It almost smells like toasted nuts or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. The nose is very distinctive on this. And
are we supposed to swirl? Do we swirl?
Smell first and then swirl.
Okay.
I smell butter. Am I weird for smelling butter?
No, absolutely. There's butter on this. And that's kind of from the creamy malolactic fermentation. There's this malolactic acid that happens during the fermentation process that gives the wine a creamy, buttery smell. And then the nut and the kind of toasty bread smell, some of that comes from yeast, but it also, there's something in here that tells me there's a little bit of, when you get a little bit of vanilla and toast, that tells you that it's spent some time in oak wood barrels. Yeah, it's not a lot. It's very light. It's like a kiss of oak. It's not a heavily, overly oaked Chardonnay. I think it's a great balance.
It's so good.
I'm sure we're gonna wait.
We can.
I mean, this is for people who don't like that really high alcohol, totally oaky Chardonnay, and it's more food friendly than one that might have a ton of oak treatment on it. This would be great with chicken, salmon, fish. You could do this with fish, poultry. It would be good with turkey, like for Thanksgiving, and also like just guacamole or something like that. Anything that's kind of creamy and buttery would be good with buttery cheeses like brie, or any kind of triple cream cheese. And what else do I want to say about this one? Oh yeah, and it's a good price point too. I mean, to me, it drinks almost like a white Burgundy. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with white Burgundies, but I really like them because they're crisp and clean and food friendly. And this to me drinks a little bit like an inexpensive white Burgundy, like maybe a Macon, something from the Macon region of Burgundy, France. So I really like this wine. I feel like this is one of our best sellers, and it's really a crowd pleaser. At retail, it's $30 a bottle, but if you're a Wine Society member, you can get it for about $25 a bottle. And I think it's very elegant. Does anyone have any other thoughts about it or comments? Like it, don't like it?
I don't like super oaky Chardonnays, so I really like this. You can actually taste a lot of the flavors. It feels like in an oaky one, they get overwhelmed by the oak, but you can
Exactly.
taste a lot of good flavors here.
Yeah. This is like a classic Chardonnay, which would have like like a little bit of green apple, pear. And I think there's a tiny bit of vanilla. Is anybody tasting the vanilla on it? It'd be good with chicken pot pie. We're getting into that season of like those comfort foods. This is a good wine for, comfort foods, or for vegetarians. This you could also have this with hummus or what else? Any kind of like thing that just gives you a sense of creamy comfort. And let's see. I guess, what else do I want to say about this? It's from Sonoma County. So that's part of why it's got the crispness. Sonoma is near, a river, and there's a cooling influence from the river. So it's not, it's not like trapped in a really high heat area where, the grapes just get very high in alcohol, because alcohol turns to sugar. But sometimes if it's really high in alcohol, you can't vinify all the alcohol out, and then you'll get like this sort of hot wine that burns your throat. But this is just totally, I feel like, so balanced and even and elegant. So I highly recommend this wine to people if they're just starting. And the other good thing about this wine is it's available in custom label. And that's a nice feature that we have in our company. We can put custom labels on several of the wines in our collection. And most people, like when I've had custom label wines in the past where the labels are really, attractive, but the wine is just kind of like, I can't drink it. But our custom label wines, our wines are good anyway to start with. And the ones that we have selected to be a part of the custom label program are all really great quality wines. So it's like they look as good as they taste as good as the labels look. You can put anything on them. They're good for like anniversaries. I did a holiday label. Let me see if I can show it to you. So I did this holiday label, which, it's going to be backwards, but I put, you can't really read it because of the mirror thing, but it says, wishing you peace, love, and joy. And then I put my company's logo on it. So you can do for company logos, you could do it for like birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, all kinds of, anything you want. You could put your picture on it. So your imagination is the limit to what you can do with your custom label, but that's a nice branding thing too, that you can leave behind like a business card or send to some of your best customers at the end. I'm planning to send these to some of my best customers for the holidays as a thank you gift. And it's a good way to, when they have it on display in their home or their office, people will ask them questions, and you get your name out there, your company's name out there, your business's name out there. So it's like a calling card or a business card, but it's something that's more memorable and enjoyable. Okay, so then next we have the Raymond Vineyards Cabernet Sauvignon, North Coast. And this is our entry-level Cabernet Sauvignon. Raymond Vineyards is and makes some excellent Cabernet Sauvignon that some levels are very collectible, but this is kind of the entry level that's affordable. You can get it for under $30 a bottle, and it's yummy. It tastes really good. It's a crowd pleaser. Everyone loves this one. This one is a good one to talk about mouthfeel with. So we can pour some of that in the glass. I'm going to use a different glass for my red. Okay, so I'm pouring probably a little bit too much for the pours, for the tasting pours. You really don't quite need that much, but okay, so you can see the color here. It's like a deep garnet color, and it's very, the color is opaque. So as opposed to like a Pinot Noir, which is a much thinner skinned grape, you've got an opaque color here, which is already telling you that this is probably going to be a relatively full-bodied red wine. People tend to be either in one of two camps, either they like their red wines more on the lighter aromatic side, like Pinot Noir, or they like them more on the bold, full-bodied side, like Cabernet Sauvignon, or Syrah, or Zinfandel, or Malbec, which are even more full-bodied. But Cabernet Sauvignon is, that's probably the world's most popular grape. And it's really kind of a safe bet. If you're going to give someone a gift, give them a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon. Almost everybody likes it, or if they don't, they know someone who likes it and they can give it to them as a gift or pour it for them when they come to visit. So this is a good wine to just talk about kind of what red wine can do and the mouthfeel that you get when you taste a red wine. So smell this one. When you put your nose in it, Cabernet Sauvignon gives you like some darker fruits, whereas I was talking about the red fruits in the Pinot Noir. This is giving you darker fruits like blackberry, boysenberry. And like I said, this is an entry level. It's a simpler version of Cabernet Sauvignon. Some Cabernet Sauvignons, when you get into the higher end, you'll be getting things like, you'll be getting smells like cigar box, tobacco, leather, that you're not getting all of that in this, but this is a nice, simple Cabernet Sauvignon. Let's taste it. Even though it's simple on the nose, it does give you some real grip and complexity on the palate. I mean, this is not just your soda pop tutti frutti wine. I like the way it still kind of like had some grip to it, and you feel like you could really want some food with this. So this has good weight on the palate. We talk about weight. One of the things we talk about in the wine world as pros is you talk about the weight of the wine. I would say this is like medium plus weight. And swish it around in your mouth like you would do like a mouthwash or something, and just feel how it sticks to the side of your teeth and your tongue, and feel something on the side of your tongue that's sort of like drying your mouth a little bit. It makes you want food. Those are the wood tannins that come from the oak barrels that these wines have been fermented in. And that's a good thing, because also those tannins, they're wood tannins and they're skin tannins, but those tannins give a wine ageability. So this wine is not that expensive. It's probably about $30 a bottle. I'm going to send you a price list of everything after this, but you've already purchased them right now, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you want to get more, I will send you links so that if there's anything that you liked and you taste and you want to get more, you can purchase more later, and we can talk about, possibly getting you into the wine club so you can get the best price, et cetera, et cetera. But for now, let's just stick to the tasting experience. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, the good thing about tannins too, wood tannins and skin tannins, is that they add to the ageability of the wine, the longevity of the wine. Because over time, the tannins they help to stabilize the wine, and they will soften up. If you put this wine aside for a few years, you just don't want to let it get too hot or too much sunlight, because that might turn it into more, it makes it turn more acidic earlier. So you want to keep it in a relatively cool place. You don't have to have a sophisticated wine refrigerator or wine cellar, but just don't let it get like over 60 to 75 degrees, and don't keep it on top of your refrigerator, or don't keep it in a place with a window nearby. But this type of wine is so good. I mean, if you think about it, if this is like the entry level, imagine what some of our like really the collectible ones are like. I mean, they're amazing. Stephanie Putnam does amazing work in the vineyards. And a lot of this happens in the vineyard. It's all about the growing technique, as well as in the in the fields as well as in the winery, but the quality of the grapes is just really good. I mean, you could taste the just the freshness and the complexity. It's not tampered with. It's really, it tastes very natural. Would you agree? Do you all agree with me, or how are you perceiving this? Yeah. Carolyn says yes. Okay, so that is the Taste Like a Pro experience. You want to assess the color and the intensity of the color, whether it's if it's clear, not faulty. You also want to smell, and you smell, and then you swirl, and you sniff again, and you assess. Like, you obviously you don't want the smell to be off. You don't want it to smell like vinegar or acetone or nail polish or anything that's off like that. If your wine smells like that, that might raise a red flag that there could be some faults in it. The other thing that people talk about is corked wines. That's a really tricky thing. Sometimes a wine it's just a natural thing that happens with cork, which is a natural product. It comes from trees in Portugal, the wood from trees in Portugal. And sometimes a cork can just be tainted, and it can taint the wine. So I notice when I open a bottle and I smell it, if it smells dank, like a wet basement or something, that's a sign that that wine might be corked. So if you get that smell when a server pours wine like that for you in a glass, or even at home, you can ask them to take it back, or you could take it to your store and return it, and they will give you your money back. So that is a flaw that sometimes happens. Wine is a natural product, it's organic, and sometimes the cork can just be tainted, and it can basically infect the wine and give it a bad flavor and aroma. So smell is important from that standpoint, as well as just from more of an enjoyable standpoint, and just taking the time to, appreciate the aromas and not just diving right in and guzzling the wine, because the smell actually helps you with the taste. It helps you to really perceive the taste. And then the taste, when you put it on your mouth, one of the things that you're looking for when you're drinking it is actually just the feel in your mouth. So leave it in there for a while. You don't have to be really obnoxious about it or pretentious, but just leave it in your mouth for a while. You don't have to swirl, like swish, swish, swish at the dinner table like a pro if you don't want to. People might start laughing at you like, what? Like, who does she think she is? Why is she swishing that in her mouth like a mouthwash? So, do what you feel comfortable with. But I mean, you could just like casually just kind of like move it around in your mouth, just to like really appreciate like how it feels in your mouth. Sometimes the wines can be more velvety and, really sort of slick. The more alcohol sometimes that the wine has in it, and the higher the more sugar the grapes had and the riper it gets, sometimes you'll get more of a glycerol feel in your mouth, and the wine will be very, kind of like slippery and smooth. And then sometimes it'll be kind of thin and like make you pucker. But I feel like this is a good mix. Like it's ripe, it's smooth, it's got good fruit, but then it's also got, I like that little grip at the back end that just makes me want to eat something too. Like it kind of gets you salivating. So this is a food-friendly wine. Okay, so any questions on the Taste Like a Pro experience before we go on to the clean living experience? This is a quiet crowd. Okay, I guess I'll just keep going. So next, I think I'm actually gonna have to pour some of this out so I can use my glass for the clean living experience. So the clean living experience, 2 people have bought that one. This is a really cool one. This is really kind of, the whole idea of this is sort of to just demystify some of the terminology around wines that are organic, vegan friendly, and dry farm. Those are the 3 techniques that we're going to talk about with this group of wines. And the principles are about the health of the wine for you as an individual, but it's also about the health of the wine for the environment and the ecosystem in general. So this first wine, the white, is a Côte de Rhône from Louis Bernard. So this is getting you more into our French side of the collection. And the Côte de Rhône is the southern part of the Rhône region of France, where you may have heard of grapes, wines like Châteauneuf de Pape and Gigondas and Syrah. Côte de Rhône is one of the village level wines in that area. And that means it's not like a Grand Cru or really like, it's a blend of different grapes. It's not a very specific plot of wine. They could get these grapes from several areas in the region. So, they're more affordable. They usually, when you hear of Côte de Rhônes, you think of them more as reds, and they might have predominantly Grenache in them, but this is a Côte de Rhône Blanc. And the predominant grape in this one is Grenache Blanc, as opposed to Grenache Noir. What is this? We have a chat here. Thanks so much. We enjoyed the taste like a pro experience. Nice meeting everyone. Okay, you're gonna leave now. I dream. Nice. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so this one is Grenache, primarily Grenache Blanc. There's another grape in here called Viognier, which some people have heard of. Viognier tends to be a very aromatic, floral grape that goes well with Asian foods. And this particular wine, the Grenache Blanc, is going to go well with Asian foods too. It's kind of like I'd say these types of wines. Well, let's before we talk about what food it's going to go to, let's pour it into the glass and taste it. Crystal, do you have yours? I think Crystal and who else got the?
I do, but I'm saving mine.
Okay, you want to drink it with other people? Okay. I mean, it's a lot to open just for one by yourself. You probably want to have it with dinner and with friends or whatever. So
I'm in insurance. I can't take that great of a risk.
Okay, so who else got the clean living experience? Was it Carolyn? I'm trying to think. Let me see. Let me look at my list.
I don't believe in clean living.
I know I was skeptical. I said, let me see what it's about first before I buy that.
You'll love it. You'll love it.
By the way, for those that don't want to open 3 bottles of wine for one person, I highly recommend asking for the Coravan system for Christmas.
Yes.
You don't open the wine. It just pours a little bit out. I did that with all 3 of my wines.
And you pump a gas, and it pumps a gas into that into the bottle that replaces the wine you poured, so the oxygen doesn't take over. Anne-Marie told.
Can you type that in the chat?
Yes, and we also,
bet.
I'm gonna send it in a follow-up email, but I'll write it in the chat too, but I'm gonna send you a link because you can purchase it on my Boisset website. And if you're a member, you get a discount. But I will type it into it's called Coravan. Coravan Wine Preservation System. Anne-Marie Toll was the other person who got the clean living experience, but she's not on the call. So I'll just talk about it briefly, then I won't go into too much since no one else has the wine to drink with me. But so this one is an example of an organic wine. And in America, we have to say made with organic grapes instead of organic wines. Whereas in France, you can say organic wines, but because we do add a little bit of sulfur to this wine to stabilize it. Otherwise, if the wine is totally organic and you don't put any kind of preservative in it, you can get a lot of inconsistency, and it might not last long for you. The different bottles would just, the wine will deteriorate more quickly, and it won't be stable. So it's totally healthy. It's still made with organic grapes. And in France, this is how they make them, but they can call it organic wine. But America has stricter legislation about the labeling of organic wine. So that's just a technicality. And this wine is pretty, it's kind of like a good, It's kind of like a good Chardonnay substitute for people who want to do something different. I like it a lot with shellfish and lobster and things, fish, and once again, like scallops or seafood, things that you would have Chardonnay with, but it's got a little more ripeness and fruit on it and more peachy notes and it's more aromatic than Chardonnay, whereas Chardonnay gives you more apple and like that toast and butter. This gives you more peach and apricot and kind of floral aromas, like maybe even a little bit of honeysuckle. It's a really pretty wine, but it's dry. It's not sweet, but it's more aromatic. And a lot of people eat this with drink this with Chinese food or Asian fusion cuisine. So that's really the
So
nuts.
it's more like a less oaky Chardonnay, or is it more, it's not like a Sauvignon Blanc, it's more like a Chardonnay.
Yeah, it's not like a Sauvignon Blanc because it's more like a Chardonnay because it's more round and creamy, where Sauvignon Blancs tend to be more sharp and piercing and citrusy. This one's more fruity and round and peachy.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would go with creamy things too, like, or, cream cheeses that are kind of creamy. And also it could take foods with a little bit of spice. I wouldn't put a totally heavy spicy food, but like a little bit of spice in it because it's got fruit to stand up to it. But the mouthfeel is very smooth and creamy, and it's got ripe fruit. I like this wine a lot. Has anyone had Viognier? And it's also called Condrieu in France. If you haven't, it's worth trying. It's a really fun wine that would be a nice anything but Chardonnay substitute. That used to be a term that people use, anything but Chardonnay, because Chardonnay just kind of got so popular and people maybe just wanted something like a little bit different. So it's kind of a good substitute for Chardonnay. And this is a good price point on this too. You can get this for about $20 a bottle. Okay, the next one is the Waddle Creek Red Blend. Now this wine is an example or a prototype of vegan-friendly wine. So as you know, the vegan trend is very big now. Some people do it, some people go vegan for health reasons, and some people go vegan for moral reasons. In the wine world, you would think all wine is vegan because wine is made from grapes, but where the animal byproducts come into play is in the process of fining the wine, which is a process whereby they put the grapes through a process to get rid of all the solid particles and sediment. So you get a clear, not cloudy, not clumpy wine. And so in the fining process, traditionally, egg whites have been used because the egg whites attract the solid particles and pull them down to the bottom of the wine. So they settle in the bottom of the wine as a sediment, and then you can pour off the top the clear wine. So the egg whites are the controversial products in wine for vegan people. So for our wines, the way this wine is vegan friendly is we just don't fine it at all. And apparently that is a very common thing in France too, that they don't always fine, they don't fine a lot of their wines. The other thing that you can do if you want to fine your wine, but you don't want to do it with an animal byproduct, milk is another byproduct that can be used to fine wine, milk and egg whites. And there's something about the chemical reaction or whatever that just makes them cling, the proteins cling to the solid particles and pull them away from the clear liquid part of the wine. Bentonite clay is a vegan way of fining, is a vegan matter product that you can use to fine wine. But we don't bother with that. We just don't fine the wines at all. So a lot of our wines, and especially the higher end wines, this is one that's more in the value category that's not fine, but a lot of our high end wines at Raymond Vineyards and some of the other premium wines in the collection are not fine, which gives you a lot more, I think a little more character, gives the wine a little more character too. In addition to it being vegan friendly, it has a little more character and flavor. So that's the topic of vegan. If anybody ever asks you if a wine is vegan or if you're concerned about vegan, is anybody in this group a vegan? No? Okay. So yeah, vegan versus vegetarian, you know, it means vegetarian, it can just be, you can still have, most people know that, you can still use eggs and milk and dairy products, but vegans don't allow that in their products. So this wine, let's see, does it, I think it says it on the label somewhere, but yeah, that's the story on vegan. Okay, and that's, what did I tell you? Did I tell you? Oh yeah, this wine it's a blend of, I didn't tell you the grapes. It's a blend of primarily Zinfandel, but it has some other grapes in it. And Zinfandel red Zinfandel is California's indigenous grape. It was here when the people, I guess it was planted here first, more than the other grapes, which were like Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon, which were brought over from France. This is considered to be America's indigenous grape. And there were a ton of Zinfandel vines in California when the people first came over to start the industry. So it's probably the most widely planted grape in America, or at least it was. It's definitely the most widely planted grape in California. Which brings me to another Zinfandel, but this is a higher end, a little bit more hardy, serious, ageable Zinfandel. It's by Deloach Vineyards, which is another one of our premium wineries. Oh, this one is by Waddle Creek again, with Katie Carter, winemaker, the one that made the rosé that we tasted earlier. And so it's in more of the Australian ripe fruit forward style. This is a very yummy fruit forward wine, but not like, it's not hot meaning like it doesn't have a ton of alcohol. It doesn't burn your throat at the end, but it's just got nice balanced fruit that's just really easy to drink and would be great with like pizza, burgers, you know, things like that, spaghetti sauce, things that you would just kind of casually eat American food, you know, American wine with American food. Now this is a more serious Zinfandel, and our resident sommelier, Marniol, we call her director of Enlightenment. If you ever go to our website, you'll see her on she has some YouTube videos at the end of each wine talking about them. And she says she likes this wine she recommends this wine to people who like some of the heavier Italian style wines like Brunello Montalcino or you know, Sangiovese, that type of grape, because it's got a little bit more of that. It's not as ripe. It's got a little bit more of that grippy, tart, tomatoey flavor. It's got red fruit. So let me pour some of this in the glass. Honestly, I haven't had this wine in a while, so I'm trying to remember now how to talk about it. But you see that the color is verging on getting a little bit more garnet purple. It's not as red as the Cabernet Sauvignon, which Zinfandel tends to be. It's a darker, deeper wine, a little bit thicker skinned grape. And on the nose, you get like blackberry, a little bit of briary kind of smell. People who like Syrah might like this, and Malbec, even though we do have a few Malbecs in the collection, but this is like for the people who like really bold, hearty reds. Yeah, this is delicious. Once again, it's grippy on the palate. It definitely makes me want food, but it's not as sweet. It's not as sweet as the Wattle Creek. It has a heavier mouthfeel and more tannin. So this could definitely age longer, but it's still enjoyable to drink right now. If I were going to drink this now, though, I would decant it for a little bit. Decanting is another good topic to talk about. So decanting is just basically pouring a wine into a vessel with like a large base that gives it more room to aerate to get oxygen into the wine, and that sort of mimics the aging process. The oxygen tends to soften the tannins and the acidity, and makes the wine nice to drink. And some people say that a rule of thumb is an hour of decanting is almost like a year of aging. Of course, it's not going to give you all the complexity of aging a wine inside the bottle, but in terms of just like softening it up a little bit and making it easier to drink, you could decant it. Also, sometimes I just like to sip it over time and just let it evolve in my glass, just pour a little bit in my glass at dinner if I'm having dinner, but don't pour too much so you can get more oxygen to it, and just sip it gradually, and then pour a little bit later and just watch it unfold over the process of the evening. That's the enjoyable, like sort of relaxed French way of enjoying a meal, just kind of talking and sipping gradually, not trying to just take it all in at once. The wine, just a little bit at a time in your glass, have some food, conversation, come back, and you would be surprised at how the wine can just change like over the course of a couple of hours of a meal. So that's kind of fun too, if you're with people who really appreciate wine. So those are the 3 wines that we have here with the clean living experience. Oh, yeah, so the technique, I forgot to talk about the technique that makes this wine so special is the dry farming. And that's part of why this wine is so complex and delicious. So dry farming means that there's no irrigation done. And that is very common in France, but it's not so common in America because France is a cooler climate. They get naturally a lot more rain, and there's not so much sunlight, and they don't have to worry about the parched vines and that sort of thing that California may have to be concerned about sometimes. But there's an intentional technique to do dry farming with some types of wines and some types of grapes. And what that does is it really stresses the vines and makes them work harder to dig deeper into the ground to get the water that's already there, and sort of teaches them how to be more self-sufficient and not dependent on external irrigation. And when you do irrigation, it makes the vine spread out more on the surface at the top level of the soil versus digging deeper down into the soil and getting more of the nutrients and the flavors and the terroir. It's a technique, the terroir, the nature of the earth. And terroir is a technique that comes from the root terra, earth, and it really is like the character, the personality of the wine that is expressive of where it comes from, where it grows, the region. And if there are other plants growing nearby, it'll pick up some of those characteristics. And dry farming, it's kind of like teaching your children how to be self-sufficient or something, or, teaching tough, it's like tough love, so this giving the vines tough love. It's making them work hard to really extract as much as they can from their earth. And it also makes the vines have fewer clusters. By the way, these vines are 75, some of the vines to make this wine are 75 to 100 years old. So the older vines have just gone really, they're going really deep down into the ground, and they have to work hard to regenerate every year. And they make fewer clusters of grapes, so it's more concentrated. It's not as diluted as if you were irrigating and you're just getting like a lot of grapes, but they don't have as much character as the grapes that are coming from fewer clusters, when the vines have dug deep into the ground to figure out how to get the water from underneath the ground, as opposed to it just being provided to them externally. And that just gives you like a really deep concentrated, that contributes to the color and the aromas and the flavor, the complexity of this wine. This is an excellent wine. You're gonna enjoy this one, Crystal, when you open it. So yeah, some people, Zinfandel is really good. Typically, like I was saying, that other Zinfandel, the lighter one, is, kind of like I would do that with pizza and, barbecue, burgers, but this one I would do with like more serious meal. I mean, I would do this, like I would eat this with a good steak or lamb chops or anything that you eat, like have with a Brunello, a roast or stews, hearty winter foods. This would be really great with that.
You're making me hungry now.
So yeah, these are the Taste Like a Pro and the Clean Living Experience wines. And thank you for spending time with me. I don't know if anyone has any questions or wants to ask anything.
I do have a question. So on the organic, since it's kind of a new thing, I guess it's been around a while, but not widely accepted. So what's the ratings and stuff? Are they getting as good a ratings as other wines, or is it just going through a process yet of being like acclaimed as good wines?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Okay, so one thing I want to say to that is there's this term called certification. So like these wines are not, this wine is not certified organic, and that's just a technical thing, but it's made from organic grapes. To be certified organic, it's almost like kind of having to be designated kosher. It's sort of like it has to be blessed just by the fact that maybe it hasn't had any sulfur added or something like that, but it doesn't really, but it's like I said, in America, the rules are a lot stricter. Like they have this distinction between certified organic and organic, whereas in France, organic is just, if it's made with organic grapes, it's considered to be an organic wine. So some of it's a technicality. As far as ratings, I mean, the organic makes the wine, definitely is the best way to make wine. That makes a better quality wine every time, definitely, because the more natural it is. I mean, some of these mass-produced wines, they put all kinds of oak chips, or, they add sugar, or they manufacture it almost like a soda pop to make it taste good, for mass consumption. But the more natural wines, organic wines, always produce a better product. And pretty much anytime you're buying a premium wine, there's probably a lot of natural winemaking and organic winemaking techniques happening behind the scenes. Does that answer your question? I mean, it's not like it doesn't, I wouldn't say it necessarily translates to a rating per se, but if there's a high correlation between organic winemaking techniques and highly rated and good and high quality wine.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Do you have a preference as to where the wine is grown, like whether it be Italy, France, California, South Africa? I mean,
No, I think wine is like, wine regions are like people. I mean, diversity is a beautiful thing, and each region imparts its own unique, traits to a wine. Sometimes some grapes do better in certain regions than others. I enjoy wine from all over the world, actually. But in our collection, primarily in the Boisset Collection, we have wines primarily from France and California, which are, two of the largest regions, and they really know what they're doing. But I mean, I definitely drink wine from other regions. Sometimes I'm not going to lie and say that I don't. I do. I like wines from Italy. Some people don't like the wines from Italy. I like wines from Spain. Spain is really big now. But Burgundy is kind of like the birthplace of, great winemaking. I mean, it's one of the oldest regions, like I said. And then California, the good thing about California is that the climate is just so predictable and consistent that it's almost hard to get a good bad vintage in California. So, but depends on the grapes. Pinot Noir is a more temperamental grape, but Cabernet Sauvignon is a stronger grape. Zinfandel is a hardier grape. They kind of consistently really do well in California. Pinot Noir can grow well in California, but it takes a lot more, attention, and it requires a lot more attention. So yeah, I mean, you just have to, it's really more about the winemaker and, them just knowing how to care for their vines and coax the best out of their vintage. And then like the style of a wine, it just depends on your personal preference, the style of wine. For some people really like California wines and wines from more, from hotter climates, because they like the higher alcohol and the heavier weight. The riper climates, the hotter climates tend to produce more full-bodied, heavy wines, because they get riper and the grapes have more sugar, and that turns into more alcohol, which gives you more glycerol, and it just creates a bit more of a bold, heavy wine versus a cooler climate like some parts. And Italy, has different regions too. I mean, there's Tuscany and then there's Piedmont, which have, do different things. Tuscany is where you see Brunello and Sangiovese, and Piedmont is where you see Barolo, Nebbiolo, which is a different style of wine. So it's really more about, just tasting and figuring out what you like. And it's like people, right? Like people come from different countries and they speak different languages and they have different cultures. And I don't think one's better than the other. It just is what it is. And, you may get along with some people better than other people. You may like some wines better than other wines, but that's personal.
As we're getting close to the new year and toasting into the new year, can you talk maybe about your sparkling or cavas, champagnes?
Oh yeah. So I have we have so many sparkling wines in our collection. I just was in Atlanta, my hometown, and I did a tasting of sparkling wines, and we have a range from the Cremant de Bourgogne, which is made in Burgundy, France, and it's made from the grapes that are used to make this are the same grapes that are used to make champagne, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier, mostly Chardonnay and Pinot Noir in Cremant. And I'm telling you, some of these wines, like you can get for $25 a bottle, and they taste so good. You don't even, it's made just like a champagne. It's made in what they call the method champenoise or champagne method or traditional method, where there are two fermentations that happen inside the bottle versus more of the tank Charmat method, which is how Prosecco is made, where the fermentation happens in a big tank. And so the bubbles are going to be not as intense, and the wine tends to not be as intense, but it's light. And some people like that style, and it can be good for, we have some made like that. We have some that are true champagne. We have some that are made in America, California. The only thing about the champagnes, most of our champagnes or sparkling wines are made in France, and some places in America right now, we still can't ship French imports, like Illinois. So that was why, Crystal, your package came to you at the last minute, because I had to double ship. We don't have to tell people that, but it's on recording now. But yeah, it's tricky. We're trying to get get more states that we can ship the French imports to, but they can definitely ship to the majority, I think like 40 states now, but there are about 10 states that we can't ship for French imports to. So that's the only challenge with our sparkling wines. But we do have a few American sparkling wines. Waddle Creek has a really good one, and John Legend, LVE exclusive, has a good one, Legend Vineyard exclusive. And I think those are the main two. The rest, and we have actually real champagne from Buena Vista Winery, but it's a French import. But it was the first champagne that was made apparently in America. The winemaker Agustin Harsty came over and taught Americans how to make champagne like the French do. So we have some really good quality champagne, and we have some good value sparkling wines that are great for the holidays. So definitely contact me if you want to know more about those. I'm going to follow up with an email with links and information about the things that we discussed tonight. And if there's anything else anyone needs me to, let me look at the chat and see if there are any questions that we need to answer. I'm going to send you information about the carbon preservation system. Yeah, no more. We didn't have too much in the chat today.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
And I love the wine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Yeah,
for giving
thank
me the
you.
Thanks,
opportunity.
Crystal.
Yes, and just as a reminder, this is a fundraiser for Gamma Iota Sigma, which is an organization, a not-for-profit that works with students in insurance. And so please cascade the link to your friends and family. You still can purchase the packages until December 31st, and the proceeds will go to Gamma Iota Sigma directly.
Yes. So if anybody's interested in learning more about the clean living, the wines I mentioned in the clean living experience, this would be a good way to purchase them. So you can still give to the organization and you can try some of these cool, organic, vegan friendly and dry farm wines. And think about throwing those terms around with your friends.
Yeah.
So do you
Or gifts
have,
for your friends.
Exactly.
so do you have some other whites in the organic? I'm more of a white wine drinker or champagnes or sparkling wine, so.
Yes, we have a Deloach Vineyards makes really good Chardonnay from organic grapes. And I think a lot of the Deloach wines are organic. I would have to, that's the one that I would think of off the top of my head. I would have to do some research, but I can follow up and get back to you on that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, more
Have a
organic.
good night,
white-
everyone. I'm gonna jump.
Okay.
Caroline.
That's
All right,
wrap.
thank you guys.
Bye.
Thank you so
you
much.
all.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
And
Thank
enjoy
you.
the conference.
Okay, I'm gonna end the meeting now.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Really
Bye-bye.
really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.